Hello, everyone. Welcome to the introduction of terrorism and digital technology, where we will discuss why it is important to discuss and problematize the topic of terrorism and digital technology, how innovation is part of terrorist movements, and how digital technologies become part of the indispensable part of utilities in the hands of terrorist organizations. I am your host for this particular course. My name is Ali Wibisono. I'm from the Department of International Relations, Universitas Indonesia. And this is the introduction to the introduction course to the terrorism and digital technology. Right, so why is it important to discuss terrorism and digital technology? We have all probably known that digital technology has already been utilized by terrorists, but digital technology is also pertinent for ordinary civilians. Thus, unlike other weapons that terrorists have utilized that can be regulated, such as assault rifles, improvised explosive devices, and perhaps some chemical substances that can be regulated. Terrorists cannot be avoided or barred from using digital technology. Digital transformation, the integration of technology into all areas of life, intrinsically changes how organizations and individuals do things. Everything from business processes to personal habits have been impacted by digital transformation. This is also the case with terrorist organizations. As they adopt digital technologies, their methods of survival and operations also changed. Terrorist organizations increasingly move at the cellular, individual, rather than hierarchical level. They no longer depend on hierarchical organizations. They tend to conduct their attacks locally, but trying to or striving to have a global reach out of what they have done, of their propaganda. So the network and the reach out is global due to the use of digital technology, but their actions increasingly tend to be localized. So it's like acting locally but impacting globally. So the digital transformation can be a double-edged sword here. It benefits benevolent ordinary users, but it also empowers criminals as well as other offensive operators, including terrorist organizations. However, we can also say here that the use of digital technologies by terrorists have not been at the level of violence which appeared in other perpetrators of crime or attackers in cyberspace that are usually hacker groups or state-backed groups. As we can see in this chart written by Jackson and Frillinger in 2008, terrorist innovations, even before digital technology arrivals, were diverse, including various types of weapons, but mostly on the types of explosives where terrorists have used, including improvised explosive devices, hand grenades, rocket-propelled grenades, mortars, and rockets. And we can see that compared to digital technology, these weapons are much easier to regulate because they are not always concealable. Most of them are not concealable. They're not easy to transport, and their usage is limited for violent actions. Whereas digital technology is very much concealable. It can be transportable, it can exchange hands easily, much more affordable compared to fire weapons, compared to guns or assault rifles or sniper rifles or grenades and everything else. And digital technology is so much harder to regulate compared to firearms. And so digital technology as a weapon for terrorists is on an entirely different level compared to firearms. Digital technologies are also much more diffused than firearms because they are cheaper and more affordable, more accessible than firearms. They are much more diffused among the terrorist organizations as well as civilians, benevolent users like you and I, compared to firearms. Digital technologies that are freely available in society today include, for example, commercial drones, the internet, 3D printing, robotics, artificial intelligence. These techs also currently provide bargaining power for various armed non-state groups, as well as terrorists included, but also other rogue lone actors, insurgent groups, even private armies. For terrorist organizations, the record of their violent action in cyberspace is close to zero, is if not hypothetical. It seems, to my observation, that terrorists are still using digital technologies for nonviolent purposes, for purposes that are relevant for their mobilization. This certainly creates challenges for the state, even though state and private actors, private companies or digital companies are still dominating the cyberspace and the digital landscape. Efforts by non-state groups to increase their control over digital technology are unstoppable because states, including democratic states, do not provide examples of the use of digital technology that adheres to democratic corridors. Basic rights such as privacy, property ownership, and freedom of movement continue to be eroded by authoritarian states and digital companies that monetize the online behavior of digital users. While democratic states are unable to protect citizens from invasion of tech companies and authoritarian governments, they are also instead complicit in eroding privacy and eroding democratic rights of users in cyberspace, reading emails from their citizens, monitoring communications and cell phone metadata, tracking online movements, consolidating their behavioral data. These violations of privacy is sometimes necessitated by the fact that catching the bad guys in cyberspace starts from the information that is either posted out or exchanged in online communications. Since this practice is democratically frowned upon, states require accountability mechanisms in conducting them. Not all governance structures are capable of achieving them. Also, other points that explain why digital technology is so hard to govern is because there is difficulty in differentiating between the good guys and the bad guys. There is an inherent feature of cyberspace where users are basically anonymous. there are ways to verify identity of digital users. They can be biometric data, they can be IP address, and there are other identities that can be used to identify the users in cyberspace. But users who are dedicated enough to conceal their identities can achieve this. They can use VPN, for example, or they can use other ways to conceal their identities. So anonymity is something that can be easily achieved in cyberspace. And there is also a problem of attribution, where the government or other actors that pursue monitoring in cyberspace cannot really decide who a specific actor is, who a specific perpetrator is in event of cyber attack. Attribution problem means that perpetrators of cyber attacks cannot be fully verified, and therefore they cannot be apprehended or made to account for their actions. And then there's also difficulty in differentiating terrorists from other bad guys, from other bad actors in cyberspace. Terrorists are not particularly unique in cyberspace. In order to target terrorists in cyberspace, governments or other security actors need to have a designated actor. So they need to designate the actors that they want to pursue in cyberspace. Designating means determining a particular actor as terrorist and limit their movement in cyberspace, and when they do something criminal, they can be captured physically. So this is called a designation of terrorists. So it requires a political and legal decision to execute the pursuit of terrorists in cyberspace, which is different from other criminal actors in cyberspace that can be apprehended using particular cybersecurity laws. One ways digital technologies can be useful for terrorists. There are academics that focus on how violence can be generated from the use of digital tax by terrorists. Up to now, the use of digital tax have led to violence when they are directly applied in defense equipments deployed in battle by armed forces, or when it is intentionally meant to disrupt digital systems. For example, perhaps you all have heard the case of Stuxnet. That is a malware implanted by the Israeli government towards a nuclear energy reactor in Iran. That is an intentionally targeted attack against a nuclear reactor in Iran, and it is meant to disrupt digital system. The later, however, this kind of attack have not been perpetrated by terrorist organizations. There has not been any attacks in cyberspace committed by a terrorist organization. No terrorist groups have been known to have used digital attacks for violent attacks. But there are other use of attacks there are other use of cyberspace for terrorist organizations. The kind of attacks that can be perpetrated by terrorists in cyberspace may not materialize in violence that actually kill or maim people, but only indirectly so. So consider a few hypothetical scenarios like a terrorist group interferes with an air traffic control system, causing two passenger aircraft to collide in midair. This is not a cyber attack that actually create violence, but they create disruptions which later on lead to casualties. Or imagine tensions that spark between two communities, resulting in violent rioting because terrorists distribute hoaxes or hate speeches, and falsely AI generated images that actually provoke, ignite people to a kind of infighting or rioting between them, leading to people getting killed. So this is not an attack in cyberspace that actually commit violence to somebody, but it create a situation where violence can take place. People are agitated, provoked, ignited into fighting each other. But the most use of cyberspace by terrorist organizations as of now is in mobilization that lead to recruitment, propaganda, fundraising, and most of other activities that actually involve communication and data search in the internet. So terrorist organizations find that digital technology for them is not attractive because they can commit violence through digital technology, but because it allows them to conduct mobilization. Now I'm showing you also a chart, a pie chart here, a result of a survey by McDonald, Jervis, and Lavis. And this is important because what I'm trying to show you here is that despite the fact that violent actions have not been perpetrated in cyberspace, although terrorists have not been known to have committed cyber attacks that actually result in damages or destructions or disruptions, the survey here is showing that the threat perception, against cyber terrorism is rising. So cyber terrorism threat level in the last 5 years have increased. So the people who say that cyber terrorism threat level have increased in the last 5 years is 80% of the surveyed population. And I have to remind you that the population here are academics in terrorism and counterterrorism. So they are continually monitoring the landscape of terrorism in the world. And so what we can see here, although cyber terrorism has not taken place, the threat perception is increasing. So, as I said previously, digital technologies facilitate terrorists to conduct mobilization, not acts of violence. Mobilization has three dimensions. Social mobilization, that leads people to support the cause, making them feel connected with the group, story of the group, their belief system, often so much so that it becomes part of their identity. And then there's physical mobilization, which drives people to act, organizing them and teaching them how to act, either singly or in groups. And social and physical mobilizations are both dependent upon psychological manipulation of public perceptions. So in examining how non-state actors are using new technologies for mobilization, we should look at both sustaining and disruptive technologies. Digital technologies allow terrorists to conduct social mobilization and physical mobilization and psychological manipulation. Please remember that disruptive technologies not only produce unexpected results, but also actually shift power from dominant players like states and technological companies to surprise actors, including terrorists, in ways that change the overall shape of the marketplace of violence. Uh, Digital technologies are cluster technologies. Digital technologies are not singular. Take, for example, your mobile phones. It is a cluster of digital technology. It consists display technology, battery technology, internet technology, or internet GSM technology. So these are all features of digital technologies. They come in clusters, and they enable terrorist organizations to conduct mobilization. And it enables terrorist organizations to reach out to larger constituencies. Imagine that terrorist organizations today have no limit in the kind of constituents that they want to reach out to. Constituents means audience. Constituents is a group of people that are listening to their actions and propaganda. There's virtually no limit for terrorist organizations to do so. So digital technologies are strategic for terrorists, not because they can conduct violence with it, but because they can reach out to a wider range of audience. And so I think that digital technologies really redefine terrorism in ways that we cannot really predict at the moment. It redefines terrorism because digital technologies allow terrorists to reach their goals without violence. Terrorist organizations or terrorists, they are defined by violent actions which are based on political motives. What if terrorist organization can reach those political goals without conducting violence? Violence is still conducted by terrorists when they have to. All terrorist organizations are seeking to survive. And they are, depending where they are facing challenges from counter-terrorist forces. It can be governments, it can be alliance of governments, but the counter-terrorist forces are enforcing terrorist and terrorist entities. They're in different levels, in different actors. Some terrorists are facing very challenging counter-terrorist actor, but others are not so. The larger the force of counterterrorism that is faced by terrorists, the larger is the effort by terrorists to counteract. The larger the need of terrorist organizations to pull out resources in order to survive. These are the kinds of terrorist organizations that probably will seek to use emerging technologies, not just digital technology, but all new technology, all the available instruments that they can have access to for violence. This is, we're looking at terrorist organizations who can use drones, commercial drones that are weaponized, commercial drones that carry explosive payloads in order to conduct attack on military assets of the governments that are conducting counterterrorism against them. This is the kind of organizations that can do fundraising on the internet. They can conduct hacking to create financial profits for funding terrorist activities, so on and so forth. These are the top-notch terrorist organizations out there that are facing a very challenging counter-terrorist enemy. So what influences the diffusion of technology to reach down to the terrorist organizations? Audrey Kurth Cronin in 2020 wrote a book, Power to the People, and in it, she outlined a lethal empowerment theory, which outlines the requirements of technology that so that it is widely used by terrorist organizations. The first one is accessible or available. There is an available access to get it. So there is an easy way for terrorist organizations to access the technology. So things that are widely available are more likely to be in the hands of terrorist organizations. Second, the price is affordable. It's cheap. Third, it is simple to use. Fourth, it can be easily moved and transferred. Fifth, it is easy to hide, concealable. Sixth, effective in terms of increasing the bargaining power of terrorist organizations, increasing their capability to conduct an attack. And seventh, it can be used for various purposes, not only military, non-military, but also communication, data searching, raising funds, propaganda, etc. So we say multi-use, not just dual use. 8, it has evolved into technology that is widely used, usually not the most sophisticated, but more widely available. So we call this not a cutting edge technology, but rather a technology that has matured and widely available for public. 9, it is easy to buy. 10, it's part of the group of emerging technologies, microchips, integrated circuits, for example, batteries, LCD display layers, and the internet. These are all digital technologies that combine to become your mobile phones, your laptops, etc., and it can be used for violence as well as non-violent purposes. 11, it resonates with symbolic needs of terrorist groups as well as tactical needs. Terrorists will always have a need for conducting propaganda, and technologies that can help them to do them, to conduct propaganda, will be more likely to be adopted. And 12, it allows for previously unforeseen uses. What is unforeseen uses? Digital technologies depend on the creativity of the users. What is the next kind of cyber attack? What form will cyber attack take place in the future? Only creativity of the human users can answer it, and there is an unlimited possibility. Who could foresee that a cyber attack could manifest as a spyware, ransomware, or a kind of malware that freezes your data or steal your data? It was unimaginable, unforeseeable in the past. It has already taken place today, and it will take place again in the future. And other forms of cyber attack that we could not foresee today will take place. Compare, for example, with the use of firearms. What is the use of firearms? There can be unlimited types of firearms, from assault rifles to sniper rifles to grenades to explosive devices to missiles or ballistic missiles or hypersonic missiles. But all those firearms, all those weapons have kinetic purposes. They have kinetic usage. They will be used in a kinetic fashion. It will hit somebody and create a damage, create an explosion. That's what's going to happen. There's not much imagination in it. But what is the next form of cyber attack or digital weapon? What is the next manifestation of digital weapon? One can only imagine. What will terrorists do with digital technology? One can only imagine. Creativity is the limit. Uh, Attacking a satellite, for example. Satellites, there are thousands of satellites circumnavigating the globe, and each of the satellites contains softwares and hundreds of data in it. And a terrorist can blind out a satellite, hacking a satellite, and create a disruptions for states or companies who own or operate those satellites. And that may create kind of terror that is unimaginable before. That's the character of digital technology for terrorists.